Hello, everyone. Welcome, Florida exporters, to today's webinar. We are so thankful for you guys to be here. I know there's a lot going on today, so we appreciate you taking this hour to spend with us to learn more about virtual tools to help you grow your exports, your sales, your brand, and business globally. So just as people are logging in, I'm just going to do a quick introduction of who will be speaking to you guys today and who will be sharing their knowledge. Today we have Susanna. Well, first I want to introduce Michael Schiffhauer, who is the Vice President of International Trade and Field Operations at Enterprise Florida, the economic development agency of the state of Florida. And we are absolutely thrilled to have him here so that he can talk about some virtual tools and grants available to Florida exporters. So he's going to have a lot of nice insights to share. And excuse me, we're also joined on our side at IBT Online side by Susanna Hardy, our Chief Content Officer. Susanna is in charge of all of these sort of content, helping companies choose what content for their international websites. She's so knowledgeable about everything from SEO to social media marketing to e-commerce to just international online presence in general. So she'll have a lot of really useful nuggets of knowledge to share. So we're absolutely thrilled to have her here. And my name is Samantha Sofici. I'm the Senior Business Development Manager at IBT Online for the state of Florida. I am located right now in Stuart, Florida, so a little north of Miami. And I'm just absolutely thrilled to be here and to talk to you, Florida exporters, about these virtual tools. So before we dive in, I just want to do a real quick intro of IBT Online. We have been in business since 2002. We are a private company. We have this amazing partnership with Enterprise Florida and about 21 other US states that trust us to deliver website localization and international online marketing for their exporters. We have helped over 500 companies with over 1,500 online global programs and in over 40 countries and in over 24 languages. So it is a well-trodden road. And actually, just as recently as last week, we received the President's E Award, which is the highest recognition that any U.S. company can receive for helping other companies with their exports. So we're super proud of that award, and we're looking forward to helping more Florida exporters. So taking a look at today's agenda, today's webinar, we're hoping to hit like about 45 to 50 minutes of information and then leave the last 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A. So please, if you have any questions that you want us to answer, put them in the chat, and we'll be happy to address them at the end of the webinar. And even if we don't have enough time to address them live, we'll make sure to reach out to you via email to answer those questions. So please don't hesitate. We're here as a resource. We're here to help. So put those in the chat box. Along with that, we'll be having a few polls throughout the webinar. So make sure to stay attentive and answer those polls. It takes just a couple of minutes to give us a good idea as to where you're at in this export and international virtual tools journey. And also at the end, there will be just a quick survey. It takes no longer than 30 seconds to a minute. So please answer those questions, and that'll give us a good idea as to how to tailor these webinars accordingly. So jumping into the agenda, first we're going to hand over to Mike Schiffhauer to talk about the virtual trade programs for Florida businesses. And then we're going to go into why do Florida exporters need business development tools? So why are they important? And then we'll go into these next three sections that go over those tools. So website localization, e-commerce, and international online marketing. And then at the very end, we'll do takeaways and Q&A. So again, please don't hesitate, shoot us a quick little message and we'll be happy to get to them. And one more note. We do have a handout available all about the Florida Online Global Programs with IBT Online. So please don't hesitate to download those as a PDF, and that just gives you a little bit more information. And with that, I will hand over to our phenomenal guest, Michael Schiffhauer.
Thank you, Samantha. Thank you. We really appreciate being here, supporting the webinar and trying to get the information out that is so timely right now under the current economic situation that we're in. Again, I'm Mike Schiffhauer. I'm Vice President of International Trade and Field Operations for Enterprise Florida, the state's official economic development and trade organization. What I'd like to do today is talk to you a little bit about some of our programs and services. Next slide. Primarily, we offer a number of different programs and services that may be of interest to you to help your company to grow business overseas. One of the things that we start out with is we have export counseling trade managers located within throughout the state of Florida in 6 different regional offices. Each of these trade managers are really, depending on where you're located in Florida, your local account manager. So their job is to become intimately knowledgeable about your company and your plans for the future as far as growth, and to make sure that you are tapped into as many different programs and services that we offer, as well as some of our other trade partners. There is other organizations out there that we partner with, and so what they do is they champion your company to all those resources. I'll tell you a little bit more about where they're located in the next upcoming slides. We also have a monthly newsletter. This is really the only system or a newsletter that's out there right now that you can go to that's a one-stop shop for activities that are going on, not only with Enterprise Florida, but with these other trade partners, because what they do is they typically inform us, and we put that in a format of an electronic newsletter that goes out monthly. So it's a very good resource to kind of keep you in the know of different activities and opportunities, so that you're plugged in. And there's no charge for our servicing, our export counselors working with your companies, with your company, or to tap into the newsletter. It's a free service. In addition to that, we provide market analysis and trade statistics. Oftentimes we have clients that will come to us and you know, out of 220 different countries of the world, they really don't know what their top markets might be. So what we can do is we can access through our various databases and resources, market analysis and trade statistics, again, kind of help you to kind of narrow that down. In other words, take it from the 50,000 foot level and bring it down to the 25,000 foot level. So it gives you a little bit more focus, so you know where you can maybe get a little bang per dollar with your valuable marketing dollars. In addition to that, we do educational seminars, workshops, and webinars similar to what we're doing today. A lot of these educational seminars and workshops are really designed to give you the basics of how to export, either the basics or an advanced course or even an intermediate course of exporting. An example of an intermediate course might be licensing and joint ventures. It's not exactly for everybody, but for some countries in the world like Israel and Japan, joint ventures are the norm. So ultimately what we do is we bring together a panel of experts, and usually some companies that have successfully done joint ventures or licensing deals, and we kind of educate our companies on that as a marketing strategy to enter some of those markets. But it's usually the basics of exporting is covered, and then we have specific doing business in, so doing business in Germany, doing business in Brazil, very specific immersion type educational seminars that will help you to kind of look at that market specifically. In other words, take it from 25,000 foot level and bring it down to the 1,000 foot level as far as your company and your products and being the right mix for those countries. In addition to that, we also partner with the SBA Small Business Development Centers throughout the state. And what we offer is the Export Marketing Plan program. This is where you can actually have an international marketing plan developed for you. There's a grant, if you qualify, that'll cover the majority of the cost. It's roughly about an $8,000–9,000 product that's produced for you, but your cost using the grant is only $500. But it's a very, very good tool to help you if you don't have the time or the expertise to try to gather all this information and put it into a marketing strategy that's going to help you really focus on various markets, almost like a laser beam. So the export marketing plan, very good program, grant supported. I want to talk to you a little bit more about the virtual trade programs that are new that we've launched. I guess in the COVID pandemic period, and I think you'll find that to be very fascinating. We also do international trade shows, bricks and mortar shows. We're really famous for that. We do typically 30 trade shows and trade missions per year worldwide. Most of the trade shows are industry specific, where we develop Florida pavilions. And then we do trade missions to key countries in Central and South America and also in Asia. And both of those are grant supported. So if you're new to the show, new to a market, you can usually apply for a grant. And if you qualify as a Florida manufacturer producer or professional service provider, your grant will cover 75% of your turnkey booth space. Or if it's a mission, the matchmaking meetings, the B2B meetings that we establish for you, are paid for, I think, with the grant that covers $1,200 of that fee. So another good program for you to think about. We also have an international office network. We have 14 international offices around the world. Those offices are your offices. They can be available to you to support you in those markets, whether putting together a focus group study, or looking at a product launch. I mean, they're available to do that for you and quite helpful. We also have the certificates of free sale program, which is more for a lot of the food-based manufacturers and the medical device manufacturers that require a certificate of free sale to be able to export their products into certain countries. We provide that as a service as well. Next slide. Okay, now this slide covers the virtual international trade programs. First off is the global website localization program that we have partnered with IBT to implement. We've been doing this for a number of years. It's a very successful program. There's a number of products that through the program that you can take a look at. One is the two-market localization program or the multi-market localization program. This is where we, through IBT, develop websites that are actually have the proper registrations in the right search engines. The cultural message, the language is all appropriate for those markets. It's actually more or less taking your company and making it a local products company in that market. Whereas many times, if you're just using a .com in the US, you're not going to really be readily seen unless they go directly to your domain name when they do a search. So IBT works with you to develop, whether it's a two-market websites or multi-market websites program that is very effective. The two-country market website program is roughly about $14,000. We provide grants to, again, qualified companies that'll cover $10,000 of that. So your out-of-pocket's about $4,000. So it's a really good ROI for you with the amount of investment that you've got to make. And also, you're going to hear later about the e-commerce program, and that also you can also apply for a grant that'll cover $10,000 of a bolt-on e-commerce package globally. So very good program. You're going to hear much more about it, so I won't get too much into that. And then next, I'd like to talk about our Enterprise Florida's new Florida International Trade Expo. We've just launched the marketing efforts for Florida companies to participate in a global international virtual trade show. We're going to be spending and investing a tremendous amount of marketing dollars to drive international buyers and dealers and sales reps and distributors to this event, to view Florida companies who will be exhibiting their wares through a virtual event, virtual trade show. The cost on that's roughly about $10,060. And again, qualified companies can apply for a grant, and it's basically covers the entire cost. So it's a great, inexpensive way to get your company out there to drive some really good qualified buyer, dealer, distributor leads to your company in this event. The event is going to be held March 16th through 18th. We're recruiting now Florida companies, I believe, through the month of November, and I think actually a little bit into December as well. is the deadline. And then from there, it's all overseas promotion, getting the buyers to attend the show in March. So I highly recommend it. Definitely a good bang per dollar. And it actually really tangentially fits very well with the website globalization program too, to help you continue to generate business and grow your company overseas. We also, if you wanted to do a virtual trade show that's an industry specific event, you could apply for a grant and get that covered too, up to $2,500. So that's the cap on the virtual trade shows. And we also have another great program called the Virtual Business Matchmaking Service, where we have international offices. What we're offering is to have one-on-one B2B meetings, pre-qualified matchmaking meetings through this service with your company, arranged by our office with international buyer, dealer, distributors based on your pre-qualifications. The cost of that is roughly up to $2,500, and a grant covers that cost. So it's another really great virtual program that's been born out of this pandemic, that's actually helping our Florida companies to continue to build the relationships, to build the channels and the sales potential during this time until we get out of this pandemic and we're back into the bricks and mortar programs and so on. So the IBT program with the website localization is here to stay. It'll continue to go on, and it's a great event, both pre and post COVID and during COVID. The virtual shows, some of those will stay, but a lot of them will probably disappear as we get back to the big shows like the Paris Air shows and the Medicas and the big marine Mets shows. So I imagine those will kind of gravitate back to those events once they're back in business. But the virtual business matchmaker probably going to stick around too as well, similar to that of the website globalization, because these programs are timeless. So I highly encourage you to learn more and reach out to your account managers, your trade managers, to have them get you all the information and specific pricing that you need to help you move forward. Next slide. This is just a PowerPoint presentation, or actually a map that actually shows you the geographic regions in which we have regional managers, and it gives you an idea of who covers what territory. You have Andrea Moore up in Pensacola. You have a Coral Gables office down in Miami. You got our Orlando office of Mike Cooney. So you can see there the territories, and if you're located in any one of those territories, I would recommend you contact that local manager, make yourself known to them, so they can actually plug you into everything that they're doing, which would be of interest to you. Next slide. And that's just the contact information, phone numbers and emails for as well. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and wrap up, and certainly thank you for your time and your interest today to learn more about the program topics that we're providing, and the resources that's available to you to help you to continue to grow your company and be successful. Certainly wish you the very best. Be safe and stay healthy. Thank you so much.
Mike, thank you so much. And great to be here also with Florida exporters today. And I think I'm going to jump right in, if I get my mouse to work. And we're going to start talking about why we feel Florida exporters need virtual tools, not just in 2020, but beyond 2021. You're still going to need virtual tools, online business development tools. Let's start with the why. Now, there's a lot of priorities out there at the moment. Obviously, companies are, obsessing about cash flow and employees and things. But basically, survive to thrive, you got to think about your sales, your exports, maintaining your exports, building your exports, and building brand awareness and so on. And that's where online tools, virtual tools comes in. So the why, virtual tools allow you to generate leads, allows you to grow your brand. And this is basically for two reasons. One, because everybody's online. If you see this slide here, you can see, there's nearly 4.66 billion people in the world online. Out of, total population of 7.5 billion, 60% of them are online. And not just sort of, occasionally getting online like my grandmother once a month. No, average time spent online is nearly 7 hours a day. This has seen huge growth in the last couple of years, but especially this last year. The internet users are up by 320 million people joined the internet for the first time ever. That's the same size as like the population of the United States joining the internet for the first time. And if you look at the amount of people on social media, it's actually even more, 12.3% growth. The number of people I said online overall, 4.66 billion, 7 hours a day. The number of people using social media, 4.1 billion people. This is very, very good news for Florida exporters. You know where your clients are. You know where your prospects are. You know where your suppliers, employees, everyone is online. And you know how to reach them. They're all communicating. You just have to find which platform they're communicating on, which is the best way. And that's why we also want to talk about an international buyer persona. So your buyer persona, as HubSpot, for example, defines it, is a semi-fictional representation of your ideal customer based on market research and real data about your existing customers. So what that means is you take your ideal customer and then you define it and really say, okay, exactly how that is. And you get your marketing and your sales team up on the same page as well. That's important because they'll each have things to say. Your marketing people might have different views than your sales team. And you define your buyer persona. But your international buyer persona may well be a bit different. So it's worth thinking about your international buyer persona for your target markets. For example, in what ways are your international buyer persona different from your domestic buyer persona? How does your international buyer persona find you? How do they interact with you? In what ways are their journeys different? So we wanted to share this slide here, and this image here of the screenshot we have here is from L'Oreal, actually from earlier this year. The pandemic was hitting the US very hard, and L'Oreal, which is known to be quite spot on their marketing, L'Oreal really wanted to give the message in the United States that they were committed to supporting local hair salons and stylists and things, and that it's all about sort of COVID, we're here to support you and so on. So that was the US image for their buyer personas, and their major buyer persona is hair salons. In Australia, a very different image, a very different message, because their buyer personas were very concerned at that time about the wildfires that were hitting Australia. If you might remember those terrible, terrible fires. So they were very concerned about climate, about science, about climate denial and climate addition, everything. So the message on the buyer persona's journey in Australia was a little bit different. And this third screenshot is what L'Oreal was doing in Brazil. And in Brazil, they really wanted to show their buyer persona that they empathized with them there, that they were on trend, that they knew what was going on with their buyers in Brazil, which was being very hard hit also by coronavirus. And L'Oreal was producing hand sanitizers, not something they normally do, especially for the favelas. So L'Oreal producing hand sanitizers for their local buyer persona. So that's an example of what a buyer persona and the international buyer persona is and across different markets. So in short, why we talk about Florida exporters, why we think you need localized websites. Number one, the world is online. So you can reach them through your website at any time of the day, at any time, 24/7, all over the world, and you can communicate with them. We also think at this time it's especially important to make sure that your head is above the parapet, that you're maintaining your brand, that you're establishing your online presence. We don't think online tools will disappear in 2021 or 2022. They're going to grow. So to get found, be understood, do business, and be easy to do business anywhere in the world, in your target markets, get your localized websites, get your localized online marketing. And there are really only two kinds of online tools or virtual tools. That's all. So it's quite simple. There are websites and there's online marketing. That's it. Now, websites can be e-commerce enabled with huge amounts of bells and whistles and plugins, or they're really simple. Online marketing can be extremely expensive and paid advertising and search engine marketing, so on and so on. Or it can be very simple, just organics, SEO, keywords. But they both act together. So you just got those two, and they act symbiotically, I guess. But what's important to realize, I guess, for all strategies for online tools is that if you want to really engage in a local market, you have to have a localized website. Your US, Florida-based website is pretty well invisible outside the US. It's a .com, it's in English, you have inches and feet and things like that, as opposed to the rest of the world in centimeters and metrics. You have US dollars, you have US spelling, US keywords, US imagery, you're hosted in the US, you've got platforms that don't always work in other words. So you need to, you're not relevant in those other markets. So what we like to do is show this graph here, this map here. If you, let's say you have, your US website is there in Florida, and it has, it has online marketing orbiting it. It has SEO, social media, whatever it is, orbiting it. And then you've got, let's say your target markets are Brazil and France. Each one of those markets merit their own websites. They can be small, but they need to be anchored into those markets, and they need to be relevant for those markets. In other words, localized. And they also have little orbiting around them, a little bit of SEO, a little bit of social media to make sure that they're active. And all of that hooks back into your US website in order to maintain brand consistency, and that you maintain control of your brand, of your pricing, of your buyer persona's journey. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. That's really the underlying premise of what we like to call the online global programs. So we believe, and we structure these online global programs and are very proudly working with Florida and Mike Schiffhauer and his team on these online global programs in order to allow you to grow your brand globally and to have control of your brand and to generate leads in export markets and all those other things. It's basically about being found, being understood, getting engagement online and through your leads and your prospects, and then building the trust and relevancy that you need to complete the buyer's journey and actually get sales. So let's talk about the Florida online global programs, how we think that they can help you, what the funding is like, what the options are, and what the different possibilities are. So I'm going to hand over to Samantha to talk first about website localization.
Excellent. Thank you, Susanna. So yeah, the first program is all about website localization. And firstly, I want to just mention that online is for everyone. I wanted to include this slide because I know there's a lot of B2B companies out there, and sometimes B2B companies just don't pay enough attention to their online presence because they can suffer from what we call perfectly engineered syndrome. When they think deep down that their product is just so wonderful that it will sell itself. And unfortunately, now that companies aren't meeting face-to-face and typical sales avenues like trade shows and trade missions are canceled or postponed, you need a really good online presence that will speak to how wonderful your products are, how great your company is, and of course, be keyword optimized so that people in your target markets can actually find you. Also, keep in mind that as a B2B business, there are still people the people that you're talking to on the other side are people, and they make purchases for their businesses just like they make purchases for themselves. So they do their due diligence on your products, on your company, on your competitors, and it's supported by the numbers that you see here. 94% of B2B purchases are researched before contacting a sales rep or distributor. Over 70% of searches start with a generic search like CRM software, rather than searching for a specific brand. So online is for everyone, even you B2B companies. And the reason for that is because of Google search engines and how they work. So the internet in general is very searcher-centric. So search engines like Amazon or search engines like Google, Yandex, Bing, and even these days YouTube, Amazon, Facebook, they're all used like search engines. They all function like search engines. They're all very searcher-centric. And Google itself has 192 country and regional specific search engines. So as a US company, just putting a few translated pages on your US website or just trying to use your US website just isn't going to cut it anymore, because Google won't find your website as being highly relevant to the specific searchers in the country. So for example, if you're trying to reach the German market, your searcher will most likely be using google.de. They will be searching in German, and they'll want to see measurements and metric and all these other things. So Google will pull up results that are highly relevant to the German searcher, and more than likely your usenglish.com website just isn't going to cut it. A nice practical example of this is on this next slide, where myself and Stuart are kind of close to Miami, and Susanna, who's in London in the United Kingdom, we both have dogs that seem to always make noise during webinars. So we both searched for squeakless dog toys. And logically, Google provided results that were relevant to each user in their location. So I got things I'm very familiar with, like Chewy.com, Amazon.com, and even Yahoo with a really relevant piece of content. However, Susanna got things I've never heard of and won't be relevant to me being in Miami, Florida. Things like barksandbunnies.co.uk, timeforpaws.co.uk, and even Amazon is localized at amazon.co.uk. So as you can see here, the same search, the same keywords on different Google search engines gave us different results. And the same would go for keywords in your industries and your markets as well. But you have to keep in mind that translation and keyword research is only one aspect of having a localized website. So in order for your search engines to find you, you need to make it as easy as possible for the search engine to realize that your website is for that specific market. So Google has a search index of hundreds of billions of pages that it needs to comb through to figure out what is most relevant to that searcher in that moment in literally milliseconds. So to make it easier on Google, you need to localize your website and your marketing. And this includes things like hosting within the target market, registering the proper domain names, making sure that it's compliant to their standards, among other factors that you see listed here and that we go through when we're localizing websites. And done really well, this is an example of how a localized website can work. Here you have a website that is targeting prospects in Australia. So it's on a .au domain name, it's hosted in Australia, and it has SEO for that local market. And as you can see, the results for in 1 month for this B2B company and this B2B site shows that the majority of traffic, so 77%, is from their main target market as a result. So it comes from Australia. But not only that, but 86% comes from Australia and New Zealand combined. So the other countries, so the US, United Kingdom, India, all English-speaking markets, but it shows that that Google didn't think it was as relevant for those markets as it was for Australia and New Zealand. So this is why
Samantha,
it's really—
can I interrupt you? Can I interrupt you please in a second? If that's all right, I apologize. I want to launch a quick poll if I may. So let's just see, I want to know what international business development tools is your company using today? So for your Florida companies, what are the tools that you guys are using today? Are you using, are you using international localized websites, e-commerce websites, international online marketing? Just grab your mices, and click on whichever is most relevant for you. And I can start to give you some feedback. We've got actually, some of you have some international online marketing. Not many of you have international e-commerce websites. And there's a few of you who have international localized websites, which is a great thing to see as well. And that's about it. I mean, well, there's one or two of you thinking about it, but I think there's the majority of you seem to be having already some international online marketing, which is great to see. And we're happy to see that. And thank you very much. I'm going to close that poll, hand back to Samantha that I clearly rudely interrupted, and she can continue talking to us about localized websites. Thanks for replying on that.
No problem, Susanna. And yes, thank you for replying to that poll. So with all of this in mind, and with the way that websites should be localized if you're trying to do business internationally, that brings me to our first and second program, which is for website localization. So here are options A and B, and what we would do is option A is a 2-market expansion with a limited scope, so 12 web pages and 2,000 words each. And by the end of option A, the company will have 2 websites completely localized for your top 2 target markets. So in this example, we have one for Mexico and one for China. And these websites will be based off of your US site, but we will go through a whole localization process, including proper domain names, local hosting, SEO keyword research, industry-specific translators, and so much more that you saw in the previous slides. So by having these websites, it'll help you be found, be understood, and be easier to do business with in your top markets. And in terms of budget, option A costs $12,000, but companies can use the $8,000 grant from Enterprise Florida towards that $12,000, making it only $4,000 for the company, which is phenomenal. Then the second option is option B, which is anything above and beyond the scope of work of option A. So maybe you want a website redesign, or maybe you just want one website but a huge scope of work, or multiple websites. That'll all be covered under option B, and the website localization grants are also available for option B. So you can take $8,000 away from that final budget if you're a qualified company under Enterprise Florida's standards. And with that, I think we can go into the case studies. So first we have Avionics Support Group. So this is a company called ASG who used the Florida Online Global Program not once, not twice, but 3 times before there was a limit on it. So they have localized websites for China, Mexico, Japan, Brazil, the UAE, Russia, and France. And they got these localized websites because as a B2B company, they were going to a lot of trade shows, a lot of trade missions. They had sales reps in those countries that were selling their products, but they had the struggle that their products were highly technical. So a lot of their sales reps just couldn't get across the technicalities of the products that they needed to get across to be able to sell to these airlines. So Hugo decided to do the Florida Online Global Program first for Mexico and China. And their China sales reps specifically were really able to use it as a sales and marketing tool for themselves. And that actually resulted in them getting a $500,000 airline deal because of these localized websites. So we were really, really proud to be part of that effort. And ever since they started the website localization programs, their exports grew from 2.5 to 5 million. So the localized websites have made a pretty big impact on their bottom line. And here we have a case study of Hugo on our website. So if you want to check out that video, please do, on our success stories. And then next we have Bullman Products. So this is another B2B company who had a little bit of a different struggle. So their products are paper products, so not highly technical, things that people actually know and touch and feel. But their problem was that they didn't know who their end consumers were. They would sell to the distributor would sell to the end consumer, and the end consumer didn't know who Bullman was. So they decided to use the website localization program to kind of change around that business strategy, and also to help organize all their distributors under one or a few websites, depending on the country. So by having these localized websites, when somebody would search for paper products as a teacher or as a butcher, they would come upon the Bullman Products site first, and then they would be able to choose which distributor they were going to purchase from depending on their location. So Bullman Products knew who their end consumer was, their end consumer knew who Bullman Products was, and the distributor was really happy because by having this additional marketing resource, they were able to get more leads from that as well. So it was a win-win-win for everybody. And we actually have another case study on our website from Anne from Pullman Products if you want to check that out as well.
Samantha, before you get on to the next program, let me launch another poll, if I may. That's just another poll. We just want to know if any of the Florida exporters on today's webinar would like to learn more about these localized websites, what they mean, what they can do for you, what's the price, what's the funding, how do the step grants work, what's, as Samantha said, sort of, the total cost is $12,000, but there's $8,000 available, so you get $4,000 cost for you for 2 websites. So if that is of interest, please do let us know, and we can circle back to you and give you more information on it and have a chat about which markets in particular. So I'm very, very pleased indeed to see so many of you responding to that. That's really kind. That's great. Thank you very, very much indeed. And we will be getting back to you in due course. I'm going to close this poll. Hold on just a second. There we go. Close poll. And turn back to Samantha, and we're going to talk a little bit about, or perhaps I should just talk a little bit about e-commerce. Why don't I talk about e-commerce? E-commerce for exporters from Florida. So this is really using your websites for international e-commerce, and international e-commerce is fairly huge. These numbers are B2C, but and they date from 2019 because it's hard to find really consistent numbers over different markets. But 2019, $3.5 trillion worldwide. You should know that the B2B e-commerce market is roughly 3 times the size of the B2C market. With China alone, well over $1.5 billion in B2B. So it's global. And since the pandemic, I mean, even in mature markets in the United States, for example, e-commerce is up about 35% so far this year, and it's not going away. So if you can't travel right now, if you're a Florida company and you cannot go to your prospect's shop floor or your trade show or whatever, selling online might be a very, very good way to do that. There's basically 2 types of ways of doing it, or actually, well, 3 if you like. One, you can do it all. You can outsource the whole thing. You can outsource everything. You can just put yourself on Amazon or Alibaba or Zalando or Mercado Libre, whichever platform you want. Or your in-market distributor. That's also, or a specialist marketplace. So you outsource everything. A lot of cost, no brand recognition. Parallel sales, difficult. Or your own e-commerce platform, that could work as well. Difficult, very techy, huge department that you need to maintain it. Or you have some kind of combination of a marketplace and a light venture of your own, similar to what Pullman Products had. Here's just a very quick view of the big players across the world. Note Amazon Global. But there's a lot of very strong regional players there too. So if you're looking into the Latin American markets, for example, you may want to consider Mercado Libre as a really good local player, which can give you the same logistic partnering. If you are looking at your own e-commerce platform, what I would say is be wary of the platform. Make sure that it has the right international plugins and accessibility. Not all of them are. Note that some of them, Shopify, for example, you need to really be on top of the updates in order to make sure that's really safe. Just as an example, great platform, but just know that it's user intensive. So a lot of different platforms to use, a lot of different things. We've done a lot of work and a lot of different webinars on just the e-commerce side. If you have an interest in that, then you might be interested in the option E for the Florida companies as well. And again, the grants are available for these. And here we have designed a program, especially for companies who are a little bit shy about going on to e-commerce for the first time or selling online. How do you do it? Where do you put the SKUs, the stock keeping units? How many SKUs do you need, and so on? So we've put together packages depending on how many products you have, and the price reflects that, but it's very competitively priced. And we've tried to take away some of the burden of the tech part of it, at least. But you maintain the brand, you maintain the control, you maintain the visibility, and that's the important part of it. This is an example of a company called VaporPin, where we designed some websites, e-commerce sites for them in Mexico. And I'm really highlighting Mexico because it's not an easy market to do e-commerce in. So if you're new to e-commerce, Mexico is a tough one to do. Now we start with another one instead. But I wanted to highlight this in particular because they have a lot of SKUs. It's in a difficult market. They're not a big company, and they are doing well with those e-commerce websites because they're localized, because then the Brazilian prospects find them and say, I trust this website. It's in a currency I understand, the languages I understand. It has testimonials. It has, it's all there. I trust this. I'm going to buy from this. In other words, again, it's this notion of a localized presence for brand recognition and for building the buyer trust that you need. I think I would like to now understand whether any of you are interested in option E. So I'm going to launch a poll for that. So if you would like more information on the option E for the Florida Online Global Program, in other words, are you interested in exploring possible e-commerce sites? So a localized website that is e-commerce enabled. Is that something that you're thinking about? Is that something you want to explore more? As I said, the funding is available. The grants are available for that as well. Apply. It just depends on your business strategy and so on. So if you want to have that, we're happy to send out more information on that. And I am pleased to say that a couple of you are very interested in that. Thank you very much. Some of you are thinking about it. And yeah, there's a good level of interest in that. And we're seeing more and more interest in that in the e-commerce and option E as companies say increasingly, how do I sell? How do I sell in these times? I'm going to close this poll. Thank you very much. And I'm going to hand over to Samantha to talk about online marketing. And thank you also for the questions that are coming in. We will save some time at the end for questions. We know we're running short on that, but we'll spend some time.
Yes, excellent. Thanks, Susanna. So I'm just going to run through international online marketing. So with all of those new active social media users coming online, over 453 million since October last year, it's no surprise that one of the main things everyone is doing is communicating with each other. Over 43% of internet users use social media for work purposes, and people are spending over 2.5 hours per day on average on social media worldwide. And this is really good news for Florida exporters, Florida companies. It means that you know exactly where your clients are and what they're doing. They're all online and they're all on social media, so you can use this. And taking a look at the next slide, keep in mind that social media is also for B2B companies. It is not exclusive for B2C companies. Social media marketing is a one-to-one medium, which gives you and your company the chance to market to very directly, but it also in a very human way to your prospects, to your suppliers, to your customers. And by having a social media strategy, it'll help you expand your other marketing efforts. So your content has a chance to be seen by a wide audience, and hopefully the right audience if you are taking a look at your buyer personas and really targeting it to them. It'll also help you build brand awareness. So gone are the days when you would only market through billboards or magazines or TV ads. With social media, you have the ability to bring your brand content directly to your customers, your partners, and your prospects. And now you can be where your audience really is and where they're interacting and where they're spending 2.5 hours per day. And also, social media is one of the most powerful ways to connect with your audiences. If you take a look at that chart, social media channels used for B2B research just as I mentioned before, people are using social media and search engines to research brands before they actually interact with them. And the top 3 platforms right now being YouTube, Facebook, and WhatsApp. It's really important for B2B companies as well as B2C to have a decent social media strategy on the appropriate platforms. And that actually takes me to my next slide. So online marketing best practices, and I will dive a little bit deeper into each one. But the first 2 we've already talked about. So first, having a localized website to act like a local springboard. So you have your localized website and then your communication policy surrounding it and driving leads, driving traffic to your localized website. Second is know your audience, your buyer persona and their buyer's journey. We also mentioned this a little bit towards the beginning, but I'll show you how it is in practice through social media marketing. Third is set your goals and your social media strategy. Choose which platforms are worth your resources, because I know there's a lot of them and it can be overwhelming. Answer all your comments and mentions. Look, analyze, and keep learning. And most importantly, do not stop. Once you start something, especially on social media, the benefit is to just keep on going. So first, I want to just show you guys how different buyer personas interact differently with social media campaigns. So it's really important to really understand your buyer persona when doing social media marketing, but also for your websites. So this is an example from a Facebook campaign where we were promoting the same product with very similar imagery and message, although of course localized for each specific local audience. So if you look at the results for this specific post, for the UK, over 1,200 engagements, which we were super pleased about. We were really, really happy with that result. But then you take a look at Mexico, and we were absolutely blown away with over 20,000 engagements. So if we stopped our analysis at this, we would infer that our campaign in Mexico worked a lot better than the one in the UK. But that's actually not necessarily the case. If we look at the full buyer's journey, we get a much fuller picture. So you need to know how each market specifically, you need to know and understand each market specifically and how they react so that you can look at the numbers in several ways. For example, we know that Mexico, that market engages pretty easily. They're really reactive and responsive, unlike the UK market, the British market. But if you look at the actual conversions, and that was the goal for this specific campaign, was to convert people. So that's the orange and green bars on each graph. That is pretty much the same for Mexico as it was for the UK. So we know from experience that you need to get that level of really high engagement in Mexico to get a good level of conversion, which means sales. And in fact, in the UK, that just lower engagement doesn't necessarily mean lower sales. So each market is specific, and you need to take into account those market specifics, which is why it's so important to understand your market and your buyer persona. And that takes me to different objectives and different goals. So there's one crucial part of the social media promotion puzzle, and that's aligning your social strategy with your business objectives. So when designing your marketing strategy, it's important to always be aligned with your overall business strategy. This will give you a starting point to decide what you want to achieve, and consequently how you're going to monitor this and what metrics you should really focus on. So is it the engagements or is it the conversions, for example, in that previous slide? So as with your business goals, you want your social media goals to use the SMART method. So specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. And if we take social media here as an example, you see how within a singular platform, so say Facebook, you can already tailor your activities and goals to your overall objectives in your business. And you need to tailor each of these goals to the platforms that you're going to use. So here is a map of the #1 social media platforms around the world in January 2020. And as you can see, Facebook has a pretty decent coverage of the world, but there are a few other contenders in Russia and China specifically that if you're going to market in those markets, you need to keep that in mind. But what's really interesting also is the second most popular platforms around the world. So as you can see here, once Facebook is taken out of the equation, Instagram has a little bit more of a hold on the world. Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, and also another platform that I honestly cannot pronounce in Russia. So you need to really take into account each individual country and where your buyer persona is in those countries to be able to target them with your social media strategy. So you don't want to be marketing in places that your customers aren't really at. So in this next slide, here is a nice example of a content calendar. So once you've identified your buyer persona, once you've identified your goals and your objectives of your social media marketing strategy, and you know what platforms to go on, now you can create a content calendar to stay organized and to really understand and get a bigger picture as to how you're going to reach your buyer personas in those markets. So having a content calendar, and this can look a year ahead, a quarter, a month, or whatever timeline that suits your business model or sales cycle, will help you structure your thoughts and make sure that the delivery of your content strategy is coherent. And when organizing content calendars for an international audience, there's a couple of sort of extra questions that you really need to ask yourself, like what platform is my audience using? Kind of like I mentioned before. Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, maybe something that's very country specific. Who am I trying to reach with this specific post or this specific piece of content? And what exactly do I want them to do next? Do I want them to go to my website? Do I want them to register for an event, a webinar, purchase a product? Like, you have to be very clear with what your objectives are. And then the last piece is to answer all comments and mentions. So social media is not a soapbox for you to talk about your company and have people listen. It's an interactive experience. So you want it to be, you want to interact with all the mentions, connections, likes, comments, any way that you can interact with the people that are trying to interact with you is really positive. And it allows you to create a really nice relationship between you and your potential customers or your existing customers. A lot of companies like to use social media for even some after service, like customer service. Sorry, my brain wasn't working. They like to use social media for customer service after the sale because they like to be where their customers are and where they like to interact. So please make sure to answer all comments and mentions and create that really positive relationship with your customers. So taking a look at all of this, we have options C and D available for Florida exporters. There are not any grants available for these options, but it is worth mentioning so that once you create this localized website, that we can drive traffic to those beautiful localized websites using the appropriate social media and search engine marketing. So we at IBT Online, we do offer that as a program. And a company that's used this is Amsoil. So Amsoil went online global in Australia, France, India, Latin America, and the UK. And we've created localized marketing campaigns through social media and search engine optimization to help drive that brand recognition, which is something that was one of their main objectives, and also to increase sales and find new distributors. And we were able to do all of that through through localized websites first, and then doing the appropriate search engine marketing and social media marketing. And with that, I think we have time for one more poll and then a few questions.
Yes, absolutely. Let me launch a poll, Samantha. So similar to the other ones, it's really just to ask the audience and all of you, all of the many Florida exporters that are here, whether they have an interest in learning more about the online marketing that's possible to do, and is it if you want to learn more about the option C, the online marketing for your international websites and so on, please let us know. Again, we're very pleased with that response. That's a very strong response. Thank you very much indeed. We're very pleased with that. Not all of you have voted, but I think I'm gonna probably close the poll now. But the majority have voted, and it's a very strong response to say yes. So I'm very pleased with that. Thank you very much for that. Okay, I'm going to close this poll now. And then we're going to go straight into sort of some questions. Actually, let me just move away here. Here we go. Takeaways and Q&A. I guess from our point of view, takeaway number one, the world is online. You need to be online too. Takeaway number two, the Florida Online Global Programs can help that. So, you know, there's a helping hand to make sure that you have the right virtual tools in today's world. There's a lot of questions and we've kind of run out of time. Very, very quickly, I'm going to do three just to, because there's a couple of them. By the way, yes, you will all be getting a recording of this. Mike, to start the process, do I call you, Mike, or do I call IBT Online?
I would suggest to call Enterprise Florida, your local account manager first, and then from there, they will make the introduction to IBT.
Thank you. Another one for you, Mike. Can you use the Florida Online Global Program more than once?
Currently, yes. Because right now, typically, qualified Florida manufacturers, producers, professional service providers can get up to 4 trade grants in any combination each year. So ultimately, if you wanted to do, let's say, a 2-market, program and then add the ecommerce later, yeah, you could do that.
That's actually a really good lead me into another question, maybe for Samantha. Very quick question. Can I convert my localized website into an e-commerce enabled website somewhere down the line?
Yes, you can. That's a great question. If you let our technical team know that that's something that you're considering, we can build it in a way that'll be really easy to transfer it over to an e-commerce platform.
Absolutely. You know, we wanted to keep this to an hour. We have more questions out there. I understand that, and we will get back to you directly via email to answer those other questions. But thank you so much for dropping those questions in. I wanted to thank Mike and the team, Michael Schiffhauer and the team at Enterprise Florida for being so endlessly supportive of Florida companies and helping them through these times and through the future with innovative programs, innovative assistance they do, and coming on to webinars like this is proof of that. Mike, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Most of all, I want to thank the Florida exporters who joined us today. My colleague and I, and Samantha, and thank you, Samantha, for joining. But Samantha and I are delighted that you all came on and spent the time with us today and put in so many questions and responses. Thank you all very much. We hope to see you online and in person. That would be nice, wouldn't it? That would be nice. It would be fun to all meet up. Let's get there. In the meantime, stay safe, stay busy, and let us know if there's anything we can do to help you with virtual online business development tools. Thank you, and happy trading, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.